Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'll be filming this Vauxhall Corsa. And yes, would you believe this is a Corsa? It certainly doesn't seem like one, but besides the rather unfamiliar looks, it's the brand new 2020 or Corsa F generation if you want to call it, and it's certainly got my attention. So let's review it and see what it's like. First off though, I'd like to give a big thank you to the owner of this car, Ben, for letting me review it. He's pretty much just bought it brand new. It has less than 1,000 miles on the clock, so it's pretty much still in its running period. I'll leave Ben's handles in the description box below, and make sure to go give him a follow if you want to. So just a little bit more on the car. And Vauxhall have been making the Corsa for absolutely ages. I think it all started off with the Vauxhall Nova in the early 80s, and they sold around 13.5 million of those in Europe alone. And then it was followed by the Corsa B, Corsa C, D, E, and then now we're at F. Likewise, the chassis is completely different from any other Corsa because it shares the same platform as the Peugeot 208. But now, here's the interesting bit. Peugeot have made an electric version of their car called the 208e. Perfectly fine. This E version has been carried forward into the Corsa, and the model name has become Corsa E. The confusion lies because this is a Corsa E, not this. Safe to say the aftermarket department is going to be extremely confused on this one. As for the front end of this new model, well, personally, I think I prefer it over the 208. Now, I know that's going to cause some controversy, but I think the smaller grille kind of just gives it a cleaner look. And also, these LED lights come standard on all ranges, which is a fantastic move by Vauxhall. Down points, it just has some fake grills here, but we could get over that. Besides all the Peugeot nonsense that every motoring journalist goes on about, including me, I think Vauxhall have done a pretty good job with this car. It has a nicer silhouette and it looks like a freshened up Audi A1. Dare I say, I think I prefer it over the A1 as well. Although that being said, when I had a look at the prices for these new Corsas, it took me by surprise. This model here costs 15.5 grand. I could buy an E92 M3 with that kind of money. Moving on to the interior of the 2020 Corsa, and it's nothing really special in here. I thought the layout would be very similar to the Peugeot 208, but it really isn't, and that has its pros and cons. So pro, it appears and feels way nicer than the previous generation Corsa, and a con is that the overall quality is not up to scratch with the Peugeot, and that's a shame because both these cars are priced exactly the same. As for the dials, I think I've said this before in one of the Corsa reviews, but I really do like them. The instrument cluster is overall very lit up, and you get this little 3.5-inch display screen as well, which you got in the previous generation, and I think that was totally fine. Some Corsa models up in the range do also get massage seats, which I think is a bit of a gimmick. I mean, second-hand owners are not really going to know they have that feature until they start prodding around with all the buttons. I think you're wasting your money there, PSA. As for the rear seats, well, it's pretty much what you expect. Am I the type of person to moan about rear leg room in a super mini hatchback? Definitely not. But the Vauxhall Corsa only comes in a 5-door variant, not a 3-door anymore, which is a real shame. Anyway, you can get the two of your friends in the back of here pretty comfortably. And one thing I've noticed is the plastic on the B pillar does not match the roof lining, which looks rather strange. Anyway, let's go for a drive. So first and foremost, this car is still in its running period. I think you've noted that from when I mentioned it earlier on in the video, when I said this car has less than 1,000 miles on the clock. And that means it's important to go through all the gears, not go above 4,000 RPM. This step is very important when buying a new car, because the future owners will suffer, I don't know, whether it be engine issues or something else. I've driven the previous generation and I've got to say it's so different to this model. It actually feels like a complete different type of car. Usually there's not much change within the design with Corsas, and that, you know, further expresses through the actual handling of the car, but this one is a completely different version. The seating position is much lower. I expect the interior to be complete crud, and it's actually not that bad for a Corsa, and it's really surprised me. I'm struggling to compare this car with rivals. The Ford Fiesta is just getting completely bigger. VW Polo, it's on a similar level. However, I think it is the more premium car, and for reliability, it may be better, not too sure. You've got to take into consideration that Vauxhall are now owned by PSA Group and not General Motors, and General Motors are known for, you know, Chevrolet, most unreliable car in the whole of the universe. But I think this might be a good move for Vauxhall overall. As for the engines, it comes with a 1.2 petrol engine from Peugeot with 99 brake horsepower and quite a high torque figure compared to its competitors, which is impressive. Also, it weighs less than a ton. The SE trim level does anyway, and that makes it a very, very nimble car. Well, I hope it does anyway. It doesn't really have any sophisticated suspension setup, it's just a regular beam. So going around corners in the wet, it's gonna be scary. Also noticed Corsas are getting extremely expensive nowadays. 15.5 grand for the base model, and it goes up to 26 grand for the Elite nav, I think. That is ridiculous. Who on earth is spending 26 grand on a bloody Corsa? Even this SE trim level, which is the base model one, it comes with everything. It's got lane keep assist, parking sensors, which is key because the rear visibility is pretty awful. I can't see out the back of that. It'd probably be really easy to whack into a bollard if you don't have any parking sensors, because the rear window is just so high. The infotainment system, I really have not had quite a lot of time with it. It's responsive, I could say that, but I'm sure many owners are going to use, oh, and that's the lane keep assist coming in handy for me right there. But the infotainment, no, it's responsive, but I'm sure many Corsa owners are going to be using Apple CarPlay, because why on earth would you use the base system anyway? I do love the flat bottom steering wheel as well. It feels amazing, gotta say. Yeah, pretty decent. The glove box is tiny as well, I forgot to mention. I'm not sure you can fit anything in there. It's guessing that is the result of PSA taking over Vauxhall, General Motors, etc. But we'll move on. The mirrors are quite big on this car as well. I'm guessing that would be quite nice for driving instructors and learner drivers. But that is where this car is just put to shame, because every driving instructor is just going to have one in it. And I don't want to be driving a driving instructor's car at the end of the day, but what else can you do? I think I've mentioned this before when I was talking about the interior, but the dials are really clear. They are one of the best in this class. And also when you do start the car, you get the traditional needle sweep, which is pretty cool. So I'm glad I'm driving the 5-speed manual today, as the automatic is at 8-speed. Is it a CVT transmission? God, that would be horrendous to drive. Why on earth are Vauxhall giving, or Peugeot giving the Corsa an 8-speed automatic? That's horrendous. What on earth are you going to do with 8 speeds? I'm guessing if it's the CVT, you won't really notice the gear changes, because it doesn't really change gears, if you want to put it that way. So I can imagine that must be a heap of crap to drive. So either get the 6-speed manual or 5-speed with the Corsas if you ever do go down the Corsa route. But Toyota have just brought out the new Yaris, and that looks pretty mint. So there you go guys, that's my in-depth review on the 2020 Vauxhall Corsa. I've got to say it's a great car, and it's way better than its previous generation model. However, it doesn't feel like a Corsa at all, and you can argue that's a good thing. Personally though, at the current standpoint, it's way too expensive for this type of car. So if I was you and looking into buying a Corsa, I would wait a couple of years for this to depreciate, or just buy the previous generation model.